My name is Maya, and I'm 28. For as long as I can remember, my family tree has had two main branches. My older brother, Ethan, the perpetually blooming golden boy, and me, the sturdy, reliable branch everyone leaned on when they needed support, mostly financial. I'm engaged to a guy named Ben, solid, kind, totally normal, and our wedding is set for May. I should be drowning in seating charts and cake samples. Instead, I'm navigating a Category 5 family hurricane, because after years of being their personal bailout fund, I finally dared to say no. Let me give you the backstory. The favoritism wasn't exactly subtle in our house. My sister Olivia, she's 32 years older than me, and I basically grew up as supporting characters in the Ethan show. Olivia's been calling it out forever, but my parents and, especially my grandmother, treated her complaints like background noise. Case in point, my 9th birthday. I got a second-hand art easel I'd been begging for. Ethan, who was 12, got a top-of-the-line drone for his birthday that same year. When I asked Mom why his gift cost 10 times more than mine, she gave me the classic line, "He's older, Maya. He has different interests. He deserves nice things." Olivia, already a seasoned cynic at 11, snarked back, "What interest? Crashing it into the neighbor's tree?" My grandmother, Evelyn, who practically worships the ground Ethan walks on, swooped in immediately. "Don't you be disrespectful, young lady. Your brother is sensitive." Sensitive was code for unaccountable. A year later, I'd saved up for months to buy a professional set of oil paints. I was so proud. Ethan decided my canvas would be the perfect landing pad for his drone. Direct hit. Paint tubes exploded everywhere. Canvas ripped. When I ran crying to Mom, she just sighed. "Well, maybe you shouldn't leave your expensive things lying around." Olivia went ballistic. Lying around. It was on her easel in her room. He destroyed it. He should replace it. Grandma Evelyn's face pinched up like she'd tasted something sour. "How dare you speak about your brother that way? It was an accident." Ethan just shrugged and walked off. No apology, no consequences. My paints were ruined, Olivia got yelled at, and the world kept spinning with Ethan firmly at its center. High school was more of the same. Ethan would scrape by with C's, maybe a B- if he was feeling ambitious. Mom would declare it a triumph of perseverance, praising his unique learning style, and treat us all to pizza. A few weeks later, Olivia and I would bring home report cards gleaming with A's, and we'd get a distracted, "Good job, girls." That's expected. I remember Olivia muttering one night, "So Ethan gets pepperoni for mediocrity and we get oxygen?" There was no point arguing. Mom and Grandma were running his fan club, and membership was mandatory. Then came the infamous startup, when Ethan was supposed to be the first in our family to graduate from a fancy private college, paid for mostly by student loans he had no intention of repaying. My parents, encouraged by Grandma, took out a massive second mortgage on their modest house. Why? To fund Ethan's revolutionary idea for a subscription box service delivering artisanal dog treats shaped like historical figures. Yes, really. 2 years later, he'd dropped out of college. The startup had produced exactly 0 Napoleon Bonapartes, and the money was just gone. Vaporized into thin air via expensive lunches and networking events. When I cautiously asked what the plan was to handle the crippling new mortgage payment, Grandma Evelyn leaped to his defense. "Don't you kick him while he's down. He's a visionary. These things take time." Olivia just stared at them, speechless for once. The sheer delusion was breathtaking. Meanwhile, Ethan moved back home, slept until noon, and brainstormed new, equally ludicrous business ventures that never materialized beyond a hastily designed logo. Fast forward a few years. I finished my degree, paid for with scholarships and my own part-time jobs, landed a solid position at a marketing firm, and was finally getting my own life on track. That's when the calls started. My parents were drowning under the weight of that second mortgage. They were on the verge of losing the house. So I stepped in. Like an idiot. I started sending them $1,200 a month, not because I owed them, but because the thought of my parents losing their home, the place I grew up in, felt unbearable. Olivia begged me not to do it. "You're just enabling them, Maya," she warned. "You're throwing good money after bad. Let them figure it out. Let Ethan figure it out." She wasn't wrong. But I felt trapped by a sense of duty, a sense I now realize was carefully cultivated by years of their manipulation. Did I get a thank you? Rarely. Was my name added to the deed? Don't be ridiculous. Was there any discussion of repayment? Of course not. I was just the reliable daughter, the off-site ATM. All while Ethan continued to live there, rent-free, occasionally tossing them a couple $100 when he felt like it, which wasn't often. Grandma still called him her special boy. Mom kept making excuses about how hard he was trying. Dad just retreated further behind his work emails. Olivia visited less and less. The only way to survive this family, she told me grimly, is to build your own lifeboat and row like hell away from the sinking ship. I wasn't ready to grab an oar just yet. About 6 weeks before my wedding, I got the text. Mom, need you to come over tonight. Family meeting. Important. No context, no details. In my family, important almost always translated to Ethan needs something. When I pulled up, Olivia's car was already there. If Mom had specifically summoned Olivia, this wasn't going to be a casual chat. I walked in, and the atmosphere felt thick, staged. The TV was off. A major red flag. Dad was in his usual armchair, pretending to read the newspaper, but nervously tapping his foot. Grandma Evelyn sat bolt upright on the couch, her purse clutched in her lap like a shield. And Ethan, he was lounging in the center armchair, looking like the king of a very small, very dysfunctional kingdom. Mom stood near the fireplace, arms crossed, clearly waiting for me. Olivia was perched on the edge of a chair near the door, looking like she was ready to make a run for it. She shot me a look that screamed, "Prepare for maximum insanity." "Sit down, Maya," Mom said, her voice layered with that fake sugary sweetness she uses right before delivering bad news. I sat, exchanged a wary glance with Olivia, and mentally braced myself. Mom launched into a rambling preamble about how weddings are such joyous occasions, how love is in the air, how families should share everything. I cut her off. "Mom, get to the point. What does Ethan want now?" Ethan smirked, clearly enjoying the buildup. Grandma leaned forward, beaming. "It's a wonderful idea, dear. Since your wedding is going to be so beautiful and everyone will be there," Mom continued, ignoring my interruption. "We thought, Ethan thought it could be about more than just one couple. It could also be a chance for your brother. Family should share life's big moments," Grandma declared, nodding sagely. Ethan finally dropped the bomb, leaning back in his chair like he was doing me a massive favor. "I want to propose to Jessica at your wedding. During the reception, probably right after the toasts. Imagine how romantic it'll be. A total surprise." I just stared at him. Then I laughed. Not a giggle, but a short, sharp bark of disbelief. "Are you out of your mind? Propose at my wedding? Seriously? Should I also lend you my photographer and let you cut my cake?" Ethan's grin faltered. Mom frowned. "Don't be like that, Maya. It's just one tiny moment. You'll still have your ceremony, your first dance. He just wants to celebrate love too," Grandma added defensively. Olivia finally exploded. "Mom, are you actually hearing yourself right now? Ava and Ben are paying a fortune for this wedding. It's asterisk their day. And you're seriously suggesting she let Ethan hijack it for his own proposal because he's too cheap or too lazy to plan his own? Hijack?" Grandma gasped dramatically. "What a horrid word. He only wants to be part of the joy. He can be part of the joy by proposing literally any other second of his life," Olivia shot back. "Why does it have to be at Ava's wedding?" "Because it's the perfect setting," Ethan said, looking genuinely baffled that we weren't thrilled by his genius plan. "I don't have the cash for some big, over-the-top proposal like Jessica expects. This way, I can make it special for her without breaking the bank." His bank, he meant. I leaned forward, my voice low and dangerously calm. "No, absolutely not. Not during the ceremony, not during the reception, not even in the damn parking lot. My wedding is not your backup plan." Mom's voice turned sharp. "Why do you always have to make everything so difficult, Maya? Your brother is terrified Jessica might leave him if he doesn't propose soon. This could save their relationship." Olivia let out a noise that was halfway between a scoff and a choke. "If your relationship hinges on crashing someone else's wedding, it's already on life support. Don't you dare talk like that about your brother." Grandma turned on her, her voice trembling with indignation. "He's sensitive. You've always been too harsh on him, Olivia." "No," Olivia said, folding her arms tighter. "I've just always been honest. Something you guys seem allergic to when it doesn't involve praising Ethan." "Exactly," I added. "And speaking of honesty, Mom, you want to talk about generosity? I've been sending you $1,200 every single month to keep this roof over your heads, while Ethan lives here practically rent-free. And you have the nerve to call selfish because I won't let him turn my wedding, the one I'm paying for, into his personal proposal stage?" The room went quiet. Dad rustled his newspaper, refusing to make eye contact. Ethan finally raised his voice. "So what? You're just cutting me out completely? Over 5 minutes?" I looked him dead in the eye. "Ethan, you don't need my wedding to make yourself look like a self-absorbed fool. You've been mastering that skill all on your own for years." Grandma gasped like I'd physically struck her. "How dare you talk that way in front of your parents?" Olivia just shook her head. "Maybe she wouldn't talk that way if you hadn't spent the last 30 years excusing his every screw-up." "Don't start, Olivia," Mom snapped. You're supposed to support your brother. Olivia actually laughed. Support him? He's 31 years old and still expects Mom to do his laundry. Maybe if you stopped treating him like a toddler, he wouldn't need to pull stunts like this to feel important. Ethan's face flushed a deep, ugly red. You're just jealous. You always have been. I get more attention than you ever did. Olivia didn't even flinch. If this disaster is what attention looks like, you can keep it. I stood up, my legs feeling shaky but my resolve solid. This conversation is over. I am not funding your mortgage while you plot ways to hand my wedding over to Ethan. The $1,200 a month? It stops. Now, figure out your own finances. Mom looked like I had slapped her. You can't do that. We depend on your help. I just shrugged. Then maybe you should have thought twice before siding with Ethan's ridiculous plan. Grandma's eyes narrowed into slits. You will regret this, Maya. Family always comes first. Yeah, I said, walking towards the door. And it's about time I put my future family first. Ben and me. The rest of you can live with the consequences of your choices. As I walked out, Olivia stood up too. For the record, she said, looking directly at Mom, Dad, and Grandma. I'm with Ava on this 100%. You should all be ashamed of yourselves. The silence I left behind felt heavy, like the air before a thunderstorm. I knew, as I drove away, that this wasn't just a disagreement. It was a declaration of war. That night, just as I was getting ready for bed, there was a loud, insistent pounding on my front door. I looked through the peephole. It was Ethan. He looked furious. I almost didn't open it, but some masochistic part of me needed to see this through. I unlocked the door but left the chain on. What do you want, Ethan? I asked through the crack. You ruined everything, he yelled, his face inches from the opening. Do you have any idea what you've done? Jessica was expecting something huge. Now I've got nothing. I just stared at him. You could always take her out for a nice dinner, I said calmly. Maybe use some of that second mortgage money you burned through. That set him off. He rattled the door chain. You think this is funny? You embarrassed me in front of Mom and Grandma. You turned them against me. I actually laughed. Turned them against you. Ethan, they are physically incapable of turning against you. They've spent your entire life convincing you the sun rises, just to shine on you. The only difference now is that I finally stopped pretending to agree. You're financially blackmailing them, he accused, his voice rising. Cutting off the money just to punish me. That's low, even for you. It's not blackmail, Ethan, I said, my voice weary. It's called setting a boundary, something you wouldn't understand. It's me refusing to keep paying for a service that includes being treated like garbage. He started pacing back and forth on my small porch like a caged tiger. Do you know what's going to happen now? Mom and Dad can't afford the mortgage without you. You're going to make them lose the house, all because you couldn't share the spotlight for 5 minutes. I leaned my forehead against the cool wood of the door. You mean the house they almost lost because of you? I asked quietly. The house they took out a massive loan against so you could play, quote, influencer for 2 years before quitting? That house? Yeah, still not my problem. He stopped pacing. His voice cracked, a pathetic whine replacing the anger. Jessica is going to leave me, Maya. You don't get it. This was my last chance to prove to her that I could be the guy she wants. Now she's going to think I'm a loser. I sighed. Ethan, if she leaves you, it's not because you didn't hijack my wedding. It's because you're 31 years old, still living at home, sponging off your parents and sister, and your entire plan to prove yourself involves stealing someone else's moment because you couldn't be bothered to create your own. A ring isn't going to fix pathetic. His face contorted with rage again. You're just jealous, he spat. You've always been jealous because Mom and Grandma love me more. Admit it. Jealous of what? I asked, genuinely baffled. Watching you fail spectacularly at every single thing you've ever attempted, only to end up back in your childhood bedroom. Yeah, Ethan, that's every little sister's dream. You think you're better than me just because you have a real job? He sneered. No, Ethan, I said calmly. I think I'm better than you because I actually work. Because when I make a mistake, I own it and I fix it myself, instead of running to Mommy and Grandma until someone bails me out. He shook his head, looking at me like I was a stranger. You're unbelievable. You've always had it easy. You don't know what it's like to have real expectations on you. That one almost made me choke. Expectations? Are you serious? The only expectation anyone ever had for you was that you'd eventually learn to tie your own shoes. Meanwhile, I was expected to get perfect grades, get scholarships, get a good job, cover for your screw-ups, take the blame when you broke things, and then send $1,200 a month to clean up the financial disaster you created. Don't you dare talk to me about expectations. He jabbed a finger towards the door. If you don't let me do this, I'll show up anyway. I'll grab the mic during the toasts, and I'll propose right there. You won't be able to stop me. I didn't even blink. Try it, Ethan, I said, my voice dropping to an icy whisper. Just try it. And I will have you physically removed from my wedding so fast you won't even get to the will you marry me part. Mark's cousins, the off-duty cops, they're already briefed. They know exactly who you are and what you might try to pull. You make one wrong move, you're out. No discussion. No second chances. He stared at me, his mouth slightly open, the realization that I wasn't bluffing dawning on his face. You're pathetic, he finally muttered, using hired muscle to solve your problems. Jessica is going to hate you for this. No, Ethan, I said flatly. She's going to hate you. Because you're the one trying to guilt-trip your little sister into sacrificing the most important day of her life, just so you can put a cheap Band-Aid on your failing relationship. He had nothing left. No arguments. No threats. He just stood there, breathing heavily, fists clenching and unclenching at his sides. Go home, Ethan, I said quietly. He finally turned and stomped back to his car, muttering under his breath about how ungrateful I was, how I owed him, how the family would never forgive me. I watched him peel out of my driveway, leaving tire marks on the pavement. I closed the door, slid the chain into place, and leaned against it, exhaustion washing over me. This wasn't just about a proposal anymore. This was about finally breaking a pattern that had been suffocating me my entire life. And I had a feeling the final act was still to come. The morning after Ethan's pathetic performance on my porch, my phone started ringing before the sun was fully up. It was Mom. I let it go to voicemail. She called again. Then Grandma. Then Mom again. I finally answered on the third try, putting her on speaker while I made coffee. Maya, she started, her voice already sharp with accusation. What on earth were you thinking? You made your grandmother cry last night. Do you have any idea how much stress this is putting on her? I took a slow sip of coffee. Mom, Ethan tried to hijack my wedding, then showed up at my house screaming like a lunatic. And you're worried about Grandma crying because her precious angel didn't get his way? She's your grandmother. Mom snapped. You cannot talk to her the way you do. She's deeply hurt. She's hurt because I refused to hand over my wedding like a party favor, I said calmly. That is not my problem. Her voice dropped into that familiar, cloying, guilt-trip tone. Family should be about sacrifice, Maya. You've always been so rigid about these things. Ethan just wants one small moment. You wouldn't even lose anything by letting him have it. I laughed once, a short, sharp sound. Not lose anything? Mom, I lose the one day that is supposed to be about Mark and me. I lose my self-respect. I lose my patience. And, apparently, I lose $1,200 a month. Her voice spiked with anger. There it is again. You always throw the money in our faces. You're weaponizing it. No, I said, leaning back against the counter. I'm stopping it. That's not a weapon. That's simply me refusing to continue funding Ethan's extended adolescence. She huffed. You will regret this. When we lose the house because of your selfishness, it will be on your conscience. That was it. The final straw. No, Mom, I said, my voice dangerously quiet. If you lose the house, it will be on Ethan's conscience. You're the ones who took out a second mortgage for his ridiculous business. You're the ones who kept bailing him out his entire life. You made your choices. Now, I'm making mine. I hung up before she could reply. Not long after, Grandma's number flashed on the screen. Against my better judgment, I answered. Her voice was weak, watery, a performance of frail vulnerability. Maya, dear, I just don't understand why you're being so cruel to your brother. He's such a sensitive boy. He just wanted a chance to be happy. Why can't you let him? Because it is me wedding, Grandma, I said, trying to keep my voice even. Not his. You're young, she insisted. You'll have other special days. Ethan might not get another chance like this. That logic was so twisted, so completely self-serving, that it stunned me into silence for a moment. So, I said slowly, I'm supposed to ruin my once-in-a-lifetime wedding because maybe he can't get his life together enough to plan his own proposal? That is absolutely insane. She kept going, her voice gaining strength now, the familiar edge of criticism returning. You've always been the difficult one. Ethan was always such a good, easy boy. You were stubborn, always asking questions, always making trouble. My jaw clenched. Are you seriously rewriting history right now? Ethan is the one who broke my telescope, who wrecked Dad's car, who dropped out of college after wasting a fortune. I'm the one who cleaned up his messes. And you're still sitting here calling him the good one? Her voice sharpened. Watch your tongue, Maya. I have done nothing but love and support you. That was my breaking point. Love? You call telling my fiancé Mark, before we were even engaged, that I was high maintenance, and he should keep his options open, love. Don't deny it, Grandma. He told me everything you said. There was dead silence on the line. Then she sputtered, That's not how I meant it. No, I cut her off, the anger finally boiling over. That is exactly how you meant it. And, you know what? That was the last straw. You don't get to lecture me about family while you've spent my entire life undermining me behind my back and praising Ethan for simply existing. She started crying again, louder this time, wailing about how ungrateful I was, how I was breaking her heart. I didn't wait for the encore. I hung up. Mark had been listening from the living room. He walked into the kitchen, wrapped his arms around me, and just held me for a minute. "Good," he said finally, his voice rumbling in my ear. "About damn time you stopped letting her manipulate you." I exhaled hard against his chest. I shouldn't have let her get under my skin, but I am done. That's it, no more. Later that evening, Olivia texted. "Mom's blowing up my phone too. Guess Ethan ran crying to her again." I called her back. "You were right yesterday," she said with a sigh. "They are relentless. But I don't blame you for finally losing it on Grandma. She's been feeding Ethan's delusion for 30 years. "I know," I said. Hearing what she said to Mark just pushed me over the edge. Olivia's voice hardened, then let her cry. She made her bed a long time ago. "She doesn't get to demand your wedding as a consolation prize." "Thanks, Liv," I said. "It helps knowing I'm not completely crazy." "You're not," she replied firmly. "And honestly, if they keep pushing this, I'm cutting them off too. I am done letting them use us." We hung up, and for the first time that week, I didn't feel completely outnumbered. The next day, Mark and I met with our wedding coordinator and the venue manager. We gave them a printed rule sheet, clear and concise. No surprise announcements, no unplanned speeches, no exceptions. We also informed them we had hired 2 off-duty police officers, Mark's cousins, as discreet security, specifically to enforce this rule. "Is that really necessary?" the coordinator asked, looking surprised. "Yes," Mark said firmly before I could even open my mouth. "It is absolutely necessary." That night, we emailed the same rule sheet to our immediate families. Olivia texted back a single fist bump emoji. Dad didn't reply. Mom's response was a chillingly passive-aggressive, "We'll see." Grandma didn't even bother with words. She just sent back a thumbs-down emoji. I showed it to Mark and shook my head. "This isn't over." He pulled me close. "Then we'll be ready when they try again." The wedding day arrived, sunny and perfect, despite the storm clouds gathering on the family horizon. Mark and I had chosen a beautiful botanical garden venue, simple but elegant. As guests began to arrive, Mark's family mingled easily, laughing and congratulating us. My side arrived like a delegation, attending a hostile negotiation. Grandma was dressed in a severe black dress that looked more appropriate for a funeral, her face set in a disapproving scowl. Ethan slouched in, wearing a suit that was clearly too tight, and looked suspiciously like one of my dad's old ones, his girlfriend Jessica looking pale and miserable beside him. Olivia gave me a tight hug as soon as she saw them. "Deep breaths," she whispered, "and remember where the emergency exits are." The ceremony itself was perfect. As I stood opposite Mark, saying my vows under a canopy of blooming wisteria, I managed, for 20 precious minutes, to forget about the drama. It was just us. The reception began smoothly. The toasts from the best man and maid of honor were funny and heartfelt. We were smiling, relaxed, finally starting to believe we might actually get through the day unscathed. That's when I saw Ethan stand up. He was at a table near the back, Jessica looking mortified beside him. Grandma Evelyn was whispering encouragement in his ear as he made his way, unsteady on his feet, towards the microphone the DJ had set up for toasts. Before he could reach it, I stepped forward, intercepting him halfway across the dance floor. "Ethan," I said, my voice low but firm, "sit down, now." He ignored me, pushing past. "I just need a minute," he slurred slightly. "Just 1 minute." The coordinator tried to intervene, but Grandma waved her cane imperiously. "Let the boy speak," she commanded. Ethan grabbed the microphone. "Everyone," he announced, his voice booming slightly too loud. "I have something really important I need to say." The room went dead silent. All eyes turned towards him. I could feel Mark tense beside me. I stepped forward again, right in front of him, close enough that he couldn't ignore me. "Actually, folks," I said, my voice ringing out clearly, cutting him off before he could continue. "Quick PSA. This isn't community theater open mic night. If your name isn't on the invitation as the bride or groom, and you didn't contribute a single dime to this event, kindly return to your seat." A wave of surprised laughter rippled through the crowd. Ethan's face flushed crimson, but he gripped the mic tighter. "No. Listen, this is important. Jessica," he turned towards his girlfriend, who looked like she wanted the ground to swallow her whole. "Jessica, I love you, and..." Jessica shot up from her chair so fast it screeched against the floor. "Ethan, stop it," she cried. her voice shaking but carrying through the silent room. I told you I didn't want this. I told you not to make a scene. Especially not here. The guests started whispering, their heads turning between Ethan, Jessica, and me. Babe, just let me finish, Ethan pleaded, looking utterly lost. No, Jessica said, her voice gaining strength. I've told you for weeks I didn't want a public proposal. And doing it at your sister's wedding after she specifically told you not to? The answer is no, Ethan. And we are done. The silence that followed was so heavy, it felt like you could touch it. People gasped. A couple of Mark's cousins actually started to clap. Grandma Evelyn looked like she had swallowed spoiled milk. Ethan's face crumpled. He turned towards me, his eyes filled with a furious, irrational blame. You, he choked out. You ruined this. I just shook my head. My voice calm. No, Ethan. You ruined this. The moment you decided your desire for a shortcut was more important than my actual wedding day. Don't blame me, because she finally saw you for who you really are. More whispers. A few chuckles. His humiliation was complete. A public spectacle of his own making. He dropped the microphone with a loud thud that echoed through the speakers. He looked like he might actually take a swing at me. But before he could move, the two off-duty cops Mark had hired moved in smoothly, flanking him. You can't do this, he yelled as they gently but firmly took his arms. I'm family. Exactly, I said, my voice carrying clearly. And family should know better. That line got actual applause. Guests clapped, laughed, some even cheered. Mark squeezed my hand, a huge grin spreading across his face for the first time since Ethan had stood up. Security escorted Ethan out, protesting loudly, but ineffectively. The coordinator calmly retrieved the microphone. All right, folks, she announced with a dazzling professional smile. Where were we? Ah, yes, celebrating Maya and Mark. The crowd broke into cheers, the tension finally breaking like a fever. But Grandma Evelyn wasn't finished. She struggled to her feet, her face contorted with rage, her voice a shrill shriek. You selfish little brat. You humiliated your brother. You are a disgrace to this family. I turned towards her, smiled sweetly, and spoke clearly into the microphone I still held. Security, would you please assist my grandmother in finding her Uber? She seems to have had a bit too much champagne. The laughter that followed was louder and longer than the applause had been. Even some of my own relatives, who usually maintained a strict code of silence, were shaking their heads and chuckling. Grandma sputtered, called me several unflattering names, and finally allowed herself to be escorted out, leaning heavily on her cane. The rest of the reception was exactly what it should have been. Joyful, relaxed, and focused on Mark and me. We danced, we ate cake, Mark's best man made fun of his terrible dance moves, and we were surrounded by people who were actually happy for us. Ethan was gone. Grandma was gone, and for the first time in months I felt like the day truly belonged to us. Still, as Mark and I drove away from the venue, heading towards our short honeymoon weekend, I knew it wasn't really the end. Not with my family. My mother hadn't made her move yet. She had been strangely quiet all day, observing the drama with an unreadable expression. And if there was one thing decades of experience had taught me, it was that my mother never, ever, stayed quiet for long. The biggest battle, I suspected, was still to come. But now, I wasn't just ready for it. I was armed.